Now, let's begin with the markets. As always, we want to take a look at the NSE performance as of a market closure. Now, we'll begin with the money markets. The dollar buying at 101 shillings 5 cents. It's selling at 100 shillings 95 cents. If you look at the sterling pound, it's buying at 131 shillings 87 cents, selling at 132 shillings 16 cents. As for the euro, it's buying at 114 shillings 9 cents, selling at 114 shillings 35 cents. There you go, the NSE performance. As I mentioned, the turnover stood at 1.2 billion. Shares traded were at 34.6 million. If you look at the NSE 20 share index there, it's standing at 2,870.12. Bonds traded worth 19 billion. Most active stock as of the latest figures this afternoon, KCB there with 4.06 million volume trading, Safaricom 1.77 million, Equity Bank coming in next with 1.19 million, and Co-op Bank 523,300. Let's take a look at your winning stocks now. Samir Africa has seen a hike of 10%. It's trading at 2 shillings 20 cents. The National Bank counter is also one of the winners this afternoon, going up 6.16%, trading at 5 shillings. Home Africa trading at 55 cents, and finally Carbacid there going up 5.26%. And finally, your losing stocks, NIC Bank there trading at 32 shillings. It's seen a downward turn of 13.04%. EGADS there trading at 13 shillings. Express Limited at 5.90 shillings. And finally, Umeme Limited is trading at 7 shillings 76 cents. It's going down there by 5.37%. All right, we want to begin the bulletin with, of course, the story of President Uhuru Kenyatta, who is expected to travel to Beijing, China. Now, this is to hold bilateral talks with President Xi Jinping. The president will be accompanied by Raila Odinga, the Africa Union High Representative for Infrastructure. Now, KTN's Abi Agina looks at the significance of the trip and what Kenya stands to benefit, even as Kenya's debt keeps on the rise. Take a look.
The visit to China by President Uhuru Kenyatta comes under a dark cloud of mounting debt, with Kenya's debt now standing at 5.4 trillion shillings. Data compiled by the Central Bank of Kenya indicates that the country has a domestic debt of 2.69 trillion shillings and an external debt of 2.7 trillion shillings. The visit is anchored on bilateral cooperation with the Kenyatta-led administration, indicating Kenya's debt levels are within the required threshold. The president will be attending the Belt and Road Initiative in a bid to ink deals to fund critical infrastructure projects. The BRI is a development strategy adopted by the Chinese government involving infrastructure development and investments in 152 countries and international organizations in Europe, Asia, Middle East, Latin America, and Africa. Kenya has so far secured substantial funding from China for the standard gauge railway project to a tune of 327 billion shillings. Uhuru's visit is expected to marshal up funding for the next phase of the project. The SGR Phase 2B will see Kenya seek 350 billion shillings from China. The railway project has so far connected the port city of Mombasa with Nairobi, and with the second phase hoping to link up Naivasha and Kisumu. President Uhuru Kenyatta and his Ugandan counterpart Yoweri Museveni have affirmed that the two countries' commitment to stick to the regional plans of stretching the SGR all the way to Kampala, in an indication that Kenya could require yet another loan to build the Kisumu to Malaba section. Abi Agina, KTN Business.
Well, thank you for that report, Abby. But now let's take a look at some of the projects which Kenya and China have collaborated on and are seeking to continue doing. If we look at, of course, the Nairobi-Thika Superhighway, which is between 2010 and 2012, that was constructed. That funding was from the Africa Development Bank, Exim Bank of China, as well as the Kenyan government. So that was a joint collaboration there with China and the Africa Development Bank, as well as the government. Now, if we move forward, and that, of course, that particular highway did cost 32 billion Kenya shillings. Then we had the Lake Turkana Suswa power line transmission for 2018, and we did have the consortium of Chinese companies that took over the project. They in fact finished that 433.96 kilometer line, and that is from Loilangalina in Turkana to Suswa in Narok in just 7 months. And that particular project was another collaboration that they had. Following that, we had the Mombasa-Nairobi standard gauge railway, one of the most popular, the most ambitious that we've had in Kenya, of course, and that was between 2014 to 2017 when we saw that construction going on, of course, and that standard gauge railway. Now, President Uhuru Kenyatta's visit this time around will center on seeking funds to extend the railway line to Naivasha, then to Kisumu, and subsequently link it up with Uganda. That's, of course, going to ease trade within the region. And if we keep on looking at some of the agreements that were signed last year between Kenya and China, as of September 2018, there was the signing of an agreement for funding the construction of the Western Bypass. There was also an agreement on Economic and Investment Corporation, under which Kenya will receive a grant of 4.5 billion Kenya shillings. That encompasses quite a few projects. And if we move on, the Chinese private investors' interests are also quite paramount as we look towards PPP projects and now to ease that debt burden. And some of the projects include the 30-kilometer expressway from JKIA to Westlands, as well as the Dongo Kundu Industrial Special Economic Zone in Mombasa. Well, those were just some of the collaborations that Kenya has had with China, and we'll see how the president's visit plays out for that furthering and the extension of that railway. But let's move on now. Kenya's cost of corruption is the equivalent of the cost of achieving the Big Four economic agenda. U.S. Ambassador to Kenya, Kylie McCarter, says the problem needs to be addressed for Kenya to continue accessing foreign direct investment. Now, McCarter promised increased trade ties between Nairobi and Washington. KTN's Brenda Kerubo has been keeping camp in Athi River. Over to you, Brenda.
So we are here live in Mavoko, Machakos County, of course, where Mass Ringley's Confectionery is looking at setting up its new factory plant, which is about 7 billion shillings worth of investment. Of course, this is one of the biggest investments we've seen from the US coming into Kenya. Currently, the trade is about $1 billion, and it's balancing both countries between Kenya and the US. So, give us more details in relation to this. We are joined by the US Ambassador, Kyle McCarter. He should be able to tell us where we are in terms of trade relations between Kenya and the US and where are we going from here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah, just walk us through, what does this facility, I mean, 7 billion shillings is a lot of money. Why have it invested in Kenya?
Well, I think if anyone was to say they wanted to invest in Africa, I think Kenya is the place to be. I think we've got a great opportunity here. We have let's all be honest here. We have a pause for peace in the country, which is a great thing. And I think the time to invest is now. And I think this is one of the examples of what is to come in the future. And I think it's not just the amount of the investment, but I think it's the way it's being invested. And I think that's what you're going to see is the contrast between the United States and any other ally to Kenya. And that is, it's going to be a respectful way. I mean, this is one of only 2 green factories, lead facilities on the continent. And so it just shows that this company, along with all the other American investors, respect the country, respect the environment, respect the people. And this is the way we're going to go about doing business. We're going to go about doing business in ways where we mentor the youth. We actually the people so that the people of Kenya can go directly on this pathway to self-reliance, because that's the most respectful way to do business. We're not just dropping down money and saying here's another road, here's another locomotive that only we can drive. I mean, this is the way that we want to do business. It's what the people of Kenya deserve. And it's a very respectful way of doing business.
There are quite a number of U.S. firms, of course, who have businesses operating in the country. Are we looking at seeing more open shop?
Absolutely. I think this is just the beginning. And I think, there's times for certain leadership in a country, and we had walked us through some tumultuous times, and I really admire him. But coming from a business background, as I do, I think this is the time to bring investors to Kenya. And one of those even bigger investments than the one we're looking at today is the Bechtel Highway going from here to Mombasa. And I think you're going to see that once we get the go-ahead from leadership in Kenya, which we're looking for right now. Once we get that go-ahead, you're going to see a road that is 3 times the depth, 4 lanes, a carriage highway going all the way, employing Kenyans and mentoring and apprenticeships for Kenyans that enables Kenyans to be the next road builders of this country. This is the way it should be. They have the ability, and we're going to work side by side with them for them to be the next road builder and not just Bechtel.
Okay, you spoke about infrastructure, you spoke about fast-moving consumer goods. Which other sectors will we see the U.S. playing part?
Well, I think, we don't go around telling everyone our investment, but we do make huge investments in national security right now. We've made huge investments in PEPFAR, over $6 billion over the last years, investing into the lives of and saving the lives of many Kenyans throughout this country. We're going to continue our humanitarian efforts as well as our investments, just like Mars Wrigley.
What makes Kenya so lucrative or enticing when it comes to setting up businesses, especially looking at where it is situated and also the African landscape in terms of exports?
Well, I think any investor has to look at Kenya as a consumer in the future. And it's not a matter of not having risk. I understand risk as a businessman. The people that are investing today, they understand risk. All we have to do is give them the ability to manage that risk. And Kenya is a great place to invest. There is a reasonable return on investment. We have a workforce coming up today. We have 70% of Kenyans are under the age of 30 years old. We have to address this issue. We have to give the youth of this country the ability to provide for their families and themselves. If we don't, we may have another security issue.
Okay, a lot of insight there coming in from the U.S. ambassador to Kenya, and he is, of course, talking to Brenda Kerubo there. But let's move on now. Since the 8th of March, Moraga has not recorded a cumulative 100 millimeters of rainfall. This, according to the County Director of Moraga Meteorology Service, Paul Moraga. Now, the county's seasonal forecast for the months of March, April to May will force farmers to replant their variety of farm produce. Farmers are cautioned against replanting maize as they might not mature due to an expected dry spell later. Now, Bichu, who is in the farmlands with the director, has more insights. Joining us now from Moraga. Thank you, Stanley, and over to you.
Well, thank you very much. Unfortunately, we are away from the farmlands, and currently I am at Golden Palm Hotel in County Moraga 001. And yes, the clouds are forming up above us, a sign of water rain, the rain's coming down. But according to the Ministry of Environment and Forestry Kenya Meteorological Department advisories in Moraga County, seasonal forecast for the month of March and May of 19, we expected normal to above average rainfall. However, that may have fallen behind schedule as farmers in Moraga may have a lot of stuff to worry about, especially maize farmers. Remember, Moraga County is an agribusiness hub where we have variety of farm produce, quality farm produce coming from this particular land, with macadamia crops in the oil and nut industry being rated as one of the best crops in the world. Kenya is ranked third best producers of macadamia among other variety of products, some of them being avocado, and it's also a water table to counties of Moraga and Kiambu County. But to give us an understanding of the forecast in the weather perspectives that have been rocking around Moraga County as well as other counties, given that in the recent times we've had drought and that has stricken in this country and has claimed a few lives here and there, and the government forced to run up and about to try and mitigate this disaster. However, to give us an understanding of exactly how the weather patterns may affect the farmers on the basis of agribusiness, joining me now is Paul Moraga, who is the weatherman Moraga, or if I should let you know, he's the director of Moraga Meteorological Services in Moraga County. Thank you very much, sir, for making time with KTN News. First and foremost, should the farmers in the agribusiness be wary of the weather patterns? The rains are coming. Are they a promise to farmers who planted before and after time?
One of the few things that we should note is that impact of climate change in Moraga is manifesting itself with long dry spells and extreme weather phenomena, like when we have high rainfall amounts. Now, the impact for this particular season, as the forecast had indicated, we were expecting rains to start on between 15 to 22nd of March 2019. We had an earlier onset on 8th, which we usually call a false start, because it was followed by a very long dry spell. What is the implication of that? Because now we are moving to impact-based forecasting. It will force the farmers to replant. In parts of Kambelwa, in Lower Kihalo of Moraga, farmers have replanted 3 times. And you can imagine economically how is the pinch in the part of that. One of the few things that we need to take, Moraga being an agribusiness county, where we have peasant farmers, small-scale farmers, and also large-scale farmers like Kakusi and Monti and the other major farmers. The impact of dry spells is being felt so much, because it's not just the planting the seeds alone. There is the labor part, and also there is that uncertainty, will we harvest? So for me, as a professional and as in charge of Moraga County, I would advise for livelihood diversification first, and also farmers in Moraga to embrace conservation agriculture, which looks at other ways like minimal tillage, use of mulching, cover crops, and other mitigation measures. And
sorry for cutting you short. And farmers who have, so to say, have planted late, and should the rains come with a lot of force, what do you expect? Water wash and mudslides perhaps in Moraga County?
Exactly. Because one of the few things we are looking at, a crop needs water. There are 2 aspects of for crop to mature. There is the crop water requirement, and there are the days to maturity. Because if you are planting a 100-day crop, and we expect the rains to be less than 45 days, it will not mature. It will remain. So there is a danger still of landslides. Because as you know, in 2018, March, April, May, we recorded 564 households were affected in landslide in one way or the other. The grounds are still fragile at the moment. So the lanes which we are having, they are percolating. They are infiltrating and percolating to the inner depths, which might also lead now to landslides again.
Solutions. What solution would you give to any farmer who is now in desperate to need to know, what should I do next now that I've planted late? I planted before the rains came, but the rains never came. What should I do now?
Now, one of the few things is that we have to live with the uncertainty part. And that's why we are saying livelihood diversification. If for those farmers who have not planted maize, they can do legumes. Because one of the few things is beans and cowpeas, they can do well. We saw the success story in Kitui where they planted dengu, and they can sell dengu and plant whatever. So we have this economically. Let's look at maize as like an agribusiness, not just like an activity. Because now the implication of this long dry spell on maize and bean systems in Moraga will be water.
Would you say that the weather patterns in this nowadays are kind of unpredictable in some way? Because now, with the rains having fallen behind schedule, I'm sure so many farmers are worried about their yields to come. And perhaps now, with Moraga being a water hub to counties like Kiambu and Nairobi, should there be worry when the rains come, or will Moraga collect enough water rainfall for consumption and services to other counties as well?
Now, my advice for farmers and even to stakeholders is let us enhance rainwater harvesting. Because what we are looking at, Moraga is a source of water for Nairobi, Kiambu, and its environment, and also for its people, but also is a source for the 7 hydropower dams, Kiabele and the others now. But at the farm level, I would encourage both the loaf catchment and the service runoff.
Thank you very much for your time. That is Director, Meteorological Service, Moraga County, giving us an insight of diversified issues that are of concern to both the farmers, stakeholders, and as well those interested in the agribusiness in this particular county, County 021. My name is Stanley Mbichu. I had you back to studio.
Thank you very much, Stanley Mbichu. Of course, they're joining us from Moraga. He was talking to the Director of Moraga Meteorology Services, Paul Moraga. And of course, a lot of insights coming from Paul as well with regards to rain harvesting and some of the risks that these kinds of rains have for farmers and what they're trying to achieve at the end of the day. But let's, take it forward now to our next story. The Saturday break-in on Barclays Bank automated teller machines leading to a loss of 11 million shillings has left many Kenyans asking whether ATMs are safe. So what do the security and banking experts think of this? Let's take a look.
It's just a computer. And I can tell you for a fact, you'll be shocked, but most ATMs are Windows XP or Windows 2000 machines. Now, it takes 5 minutes to break into Windows 7 or Windows 10 machine when you have physical access. It takes, for Macintosh laptops that are unencrypted, it takes 6 seconds to actually have physical access to it. It's a lot of change management issues with the banks that is very difficult to change those machines into an upgraded version of it. That is the difficulties I've seen a lot of banks having, that the software is not compatible with the latest version of an operating system. But if that can be changed, then I don't think we should have a lot of problems with that. That is if somebody is hacking the ATM system. And also the process that it takes for the ATM to be installed. Remember, it's not being done by the bank. It's being done by a third party who is specialized to do this. So again, have you vetted those third parties to be able to be sure that they are doing the right implementation? Have you vetted them to be sure that all documents have been signed properly and forget about the court of law even.
Infrastructure is safe. I would like to assure the customers their money is safe. We have isolated incidences. Where you see an incident, we have actually 10 incidences that we stopped. So in this particular case over the weekend, you saw one incident that was successful. We have 20 others that you don't know about that we stopped.
On that note,